Hi, my name is Lindsay Solner, and I'm a fifth-generation cattle producer that graduated from the University of Saskatchewan last year. I attended a Manitoba Beef Producers Town Hall meeting regarding the mandatory livestock inspection resolution. My parents questioned the resolution's ability to give the government more control of the cattle industry. When it was questioned, other members that were in attendance got defensive and made us feel like we were condoning cattle theft, which was completely untrue. At the meeting, only cattle theft and traceability were talked about, and the legislative and regulatory changes that were mentioned in the resolution were not. What we had questioned was why the mandatory livestock inspection resolution needs to be so broad and not just focus on what the cattle producers really need at this time. Because right now the resolution has the ability to make legislative and regulatory changes and does not have any details about what those will be in the future, and it goes well beyond livestock inspection to prevent theft or fraud and allows for more government regulations. There was a producer at the meeting that mentioned about how the RCMP are basically useless when looking for and proving cattle theft, even though some people think that having a designated RCMP force is going to help. Now, how are they going to help when they are already short-staffed in Manitoba? So if we did have a designated RCMP force for finding missing cattle, we aren't going to be solving any problems when we don't have any mandatory permanent identification like branding. Because everybody knows how easy it is to cut out an old tag and replace it with a new one. So I think the best way to safeguard yourself from theft is by registering a brand and getting it on all of your livestock. Branding should be a legal requirement in Manitoba because it has already been implemented in Alberta since 1878. If producers are worried about being able to find their stolen cattle, this would be the best chance in proving ownership, especially if they're going to be using RCMP. Which is why I find it strange why the Manitoba beef producers still say that producers do not need to brand, because the main concern at the town hall meeting that I attended was cattle theft. I think that if the Manitoba government wants better traceability, which is what they were talking about, for cattle, then a branding mandate should be implemented before involving livestock inspectors, because right now relying on ear tags is absolutely ridiculous for prevention of cattle theft and proof of ownership. So the resolution states that Livestock Services of Saskatchewan has an established history of conducting livestock inspections in Manitoba, and their existing livestock inspection levels in Manitoba currently only cover a limited volume of total cattle-related transactions in the province. So the resolution must clearly state what the parameters of the mandatory livestock inspections will be, because without a specific purpose for the target of the resolution, theft and fraud will come second to government control over our herds, because the resolution just leaves that wide open. So another thing that was mentioned about the use for livestock inspectors is to limit the spread of disease between provinces. But how can that be possible if, say, a rancher brings in a group of cows to be inspected and none of them are showing symptoms of sickness, but they're in the incubation period of Johne's or bovine tuberculosis? The inspectors wouldn't be able to distinguish if those animals are sick or not, and they would end up being transported anyway. There's also going to be a mandatory payment of $2.75 per head, and we were told that that price will increase. So we could be paying double or more per head without any better services every time we bring our animals to the auction mart or transport any animals off of your farm to be sold. The thing is that we should have the right to choose whether we are in this program or not, because us Manitoba producers are intelligent enough to make the best decisions for our own operations and should not be forced into something we don't want to do. So Manitoba already allows branding, and it is also a requirement to have a Manitoba Livestock Manifest, and for all of your animals to have an RFID tag when selling and shipping them. The Livestock Manifest is a required movement document that verifies your declaration of ownership of animals. So, needless to say, Manitoba already has the required tools in place to protect our animals, but we are never asked to produce a Livestock Manifest at the auction mart. So, we already have all these things in place. So, for example, like, we've had a trucker, like with our cattle, we bring them to the auction mart with them, and they don't even need to have, it's not a requirement for them to have that Livestock Manifest, which is basically like the same kind of thing that the inspectors will be doing. It's a declaration of ownership and traceability. So to summarize the format of this resolution, it started off strong with a plan that nobody will be against, and then it had a bunch of filler in it, which made you lose interest, and then it ends with therefore, and it kind of ping-pongs around, and it doesn't say what it pertains to. And then by this time, you've already stopped reading, because it was written in a broad and confusing way, so you can't really question it. If it's broad and everybody says, well, it's broad, so it has to include everything, but you need to have specific details in there what it's talking about. And this is what's frustrating about it, because the resolution was made for cattle producers, and for it to not specifically explain what its intentions are for anybody to understand, there's obviously an issue. Like, I should be able to summarize it, and every cattle producer that I talk to should be able to summarize it and explain what it's talking about. So it needs to be rewritten with the intention to respect and protect cattle producers in Manitoba and not shackle them with any more government controls, which is what the United States has been fighting against with their own beef checkoff, which Lonesome Land's YouTube page has a pretty good videos on describing these same issues that are going on in Canada. I would strongly encourage Manitoba beef producers to review the mandatory beef inspection resolution, which is what this video is about, and pay attention to the issues that are and are not being brought up. Also, please go to the annual general meeting on February 20th, where this resolution will be debated and voted on. This is a very important issue that pertains to everybody in the Canadian cattle industry, and it affects our future.